It's great to be here. When I got to thinking about Shannon inviting me to come do this, I started thinking about what in the world do I go tell a bunch of college students about college or about life or whatever. And I remembered my experience at CBC, where I went to college with Chapel, was more like, will this ever end? And there's probably some of you who had those moments in time where you've been that way. And so I thought, as I prayed through this, I really thought about just kind of coming, just talking some just practical life with you for a few minutes and kind of just talking about some things that I think would have helped me as a college student. And the one thing that came to my mind was to not give up. I don't know where some of you are this morning. I don't know kind of how you feel about classes. And I know we're getting close to a semester. We're getting close to those finals. And, you know, some of y'all may be begging for mercy from your teachers already or whatever. But giving up is something that really comes easily. It kind of comes natural as humans to just give up. And I looked at some statistics on college life, and did you know that 70% of Americans will study at a four-year college, but less than 2/3 will graduate with a degree? That's less than half of Americans that will actually graduate with a degree in college. 30% of college freshmen drop out after their first year of college. There may be some of you sitting there in your seats right now going, yes, I'm doing it after my first semester of college. I don't know, but that's the truth. And then according to a 6-year study, about 20% more men drop out of college than women. Hey guys, we need to step up. As leaders in our family, as people who are going to be putting the bread on the table someday, we need to step up. Don't give up. I know college is hard. I know that there's moments you're ready to give up. I know that life gets hard, and there's times you're just thinking, I am done. I am sick of this. I want out of this. But I'm telling you, don't give up. Did you know that a college degree has a higher return rate on investment for a graduate in the United States than any other nation in the world? It's a good thing you're here. And guys, I'm going to tell you, when I say don't give up, I'm not just talking about college. I'm talking about life in general. How many football fans we have in here, by the way? Any of y'all? Awesome, man. I love football. So I spent 3 years of ministry in Forest City, Arkansas, and some of y'all may know where that is. I'm still trying to sell a house there 8.5 years later, but that's Forest City for you. But while I was there, I also was a coach for 3 years with the Forest City football team, and our very first game was going to be, being one of the coaches, was at Marion, Arkansas. And we were picked to be good that year. I mean, we were picked to be, possibly looking at a state championship that year. We really had it going on. In fact, we had 5 players on our team that year that ended up going and playing D1 sports. One of them was Barrett Aston, who went and played, and he was the pitcher for the Razorbacks. He ended up getting to go to Omaha and pitching at Omaha. One of them was a Devion McKinney, who went on to be a special teams guy for the Razorbacks and did a great job there with that. And there's tons of guys that were just incredible talent. So we show up in Marion, Arkansas. We knew they were going to be good. There was no doubt they were going to be good. But we go into the locker room at halftime, and the score is 34-7. And we are not 34. I mean, it was embarrassing. And so now remember, like the team, if you played football in high school, you remember the team always seems to beat the coaches in the locker room because you're supposed to be running off that field. They beat us in there. The head coach is in front, and we're all kind of like single file behind the head coach. First thing he does, he walks in, kicks a trash can, he goes flying against the wall. The rest of us coaches are like, we'll go stand out here. I mean, like we quickly got out of the room. We did not want to be in there. But I'll never forget what the head coach went and told the players. A guy named Rich Trails, and I don't even think Rich is a Christian today. But he walks into that locker room, and he goes and talking to these guys. He said, you know why we're losing? It's not because that team is better than us. No. It's not because it's raining outside. We're losing because you guys gave up the first time they punched you in the mouth. You gave up. So now you got a choice to make. We're going to walk back out on that field in a few minutes, and you're going to have to make the choice. All right, we're going to give up. Are we going to take this loss, and hopefully next week we'll turn it into a W, but always thinking back on this game, or are we going to go out there and make a difference? It's your choice. You get to choose whether to give up or not. And guys, I'll never forget as he's telling that. Of course, us coaches, we're outside going, dude, I don't think we're going to come back. This doesn't look good. And I'll never forget that feeling, but him just charging these guys to say, hey, what are you going to do when you walk back out? And guys, I want you to understand for just a minute, life's going to hit you in the mouth at some point. It may already be doing it. Life is going to give you this moment in time where you're going to have to decide, all right, am I going to push forward or am I giving up? Am I going to go and make something of myself or am I just done? Am I just done? And it brings me back to one of my favorite verses, 2 Timothy 4:7. And I want you to understand for a minute where Paul is at in this verse. First of all, we know Timothy's a young guy. We know he's a young pastor, and we know that Paul's pouring into him. But what I want you to understand about this point in Paul's life is he knows it's about to be over. In fact, if you go back to the verse before it, he says, I am like a cup being poured out, for I know my time of departure has come. He knows his head's about to be chopped off. And I'm going to tell you what, when I hear things like Joel Osteen talk about how if you follow God, everything's going to be perfect, I don't think he thinks about Paul when he talks about that. Because Paul was following God, but his life was so far from perfect. This dude had been stoned and left for dead. And then he goes back and he writes it to Timothy. He says, I have fought the good fight. I finished the course, and I kept the faith. It's proof that Paul was a Baptist. He did 3 points right there in that sermon. That's just a joke. But he points out some great words for us. First of all, fight the good fight. We are truly giving everything we are when we truly decide to go and reach a goal. So I want to ask you, are you giving everything right now in your life? Are you really going out for this goal of getting through with college? Or maybe it's a goal of maybe even leading somebody to Christ. I mean, are you really giving it everything that you've got? Anyone can give up and be like everybody else. We live in a nation full of people who just want to be like everybody else. But I'm going to tell you something. When you think about fighting, I want you to think about this for a minute. That word there, and I think when Paul's talking to Timothy, he's saying, look, he said, there's going to be a lot of fights that you're going to have in your life. You're going to fight against yourself. You're going to fight against sin, your sinful nature that you have. And I'm going to tell you what, when I look at the church, when I look at the students that I'm dealing with every day, there's a lot of people giving into this fight. Giving into things like pornography. I can't tell you the number of young men and in the last 5 years, young women that have come forward out of our student ministry saying, I am struggling with this. And it makes me really sad to think about the ones who are not struggling at it, who are just giving in and letting it happen. Sex. You're being told everybody, hey, you go be you. You go do whatever makes you happy. You do whatever makes you feel good. You have a whole world telling you that. It's why people are becoming alcoholics. It's why homosexuality is the way it is. It's why people are promiscuous the way they are. They're telling you just to be the way you are. Greed and jealousy. My goodness. Just go check out and just pay attention to what's going on right now in politics. You can see this all through it. And I'm probably going to break some hearts, but it's on both sides of the aisle too. Because it is a sin problem. It's a sinful nature that we have to fight against. You're fighting the world that is telling you to be whoever you want to be. But I want to remind you of this too. Another favorite verse of mine is 1 Peter 5:8. It says, be of a sober spirit. Be on the alert. Your adversary, the devil, is prowling around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. You ever seen what happens to something when a lion devours it? There really isn't much left. It's kind of like when a middle school student shows up at an ice cream buffet. There's just not a whole lot left. It's going to be gone. But that's what Satan wants to do to us. If we're not fighting, if we're not striving and never giving in, because let me just say, if you're not living your life for Christ, saying, I'm going to do everything I can to serve Him, you're going to be devoured. There's going to come that moment in time when sin is going to enter in your life, and you're going to realize, even as a Christian, that you need to stop and say, God, I'm not living for you. Doesn't mean you lose your Christianity. Because praise God, we serve a gracious and merciful God that even when we mess up, He still loves us. We still are His child. But there's no doubt there's times that He lets us get an arm's length so we realize what it's like for just a minute to need Him once again. Don't give up. Don't give in. Don't stop the fight. We can't be willing to just get by. We got to strive to be the best that we can be in everything that we do, especially our walk with Christ. The second thing Paul says there, he says he finished the course. When I think about this statement, I think about this marathon runner that's on mile 10 and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not going to make it. And then if it's me, you're on mile 1 thinking, I'm going to die right here. I mean, this is exactly what I think about. Are you finishing the course? Are you finishing what's laid before you? Are you going all out? You're going to be tempted to give up. Think about Paul for a minute. Paul probably wanted to give up when he was stoned and left behind. Paul probably wanted to give up when he was shipwrecked with a bunch of people that couldn't swim. Did you ever catch that part of that story? Paul probably wanted to give up when he got bitten by a snake that was coming out of a fire, just thinking, God, what in the world, man, how bad can my day get? But he never gives up. Paul, he's writing this probably wanting to give up, knowing that his head's about to be chopped off. And this is the statement he's making to Paul. So who are we as Christians to say, this is too hard? I want to give up. Who are we as college students saying, it's too difficult, I want to give up? And I get it, man. You guys, y'all study a ton. I've got 2 members of my staff right now that work for me that, man, they're both getting their masters right now. And I'm telling you what, I don't envy them at all. Like, they're working for me 40, 50 hours a week right now. It's football season, so sometimes it's 60 and 70 hours a week because we're feeding football teams. And even last night while I was here, they were leading a FCA, Fields of Faith, for me. I mean, these guys, they're working their tails off for me, but they're also working through school. And I'm thinking, man, I don't know how they're doing it. One of them's a guy named Brock, and Brock, man, this guy's amazing. I mean, he's incredible what he does. He is my associate student pastor at our main campus, and man, this guy has just had a baby this past year. This guy is doubling up on his master's, so he can hopefully get done in May, and he's still working his tail off. But you know what? He's told me, he said, Chris, I'm not giving up. He said, I know this is a hard season of life for me. He said, but I also know that God's brought me here, that God's going to get me through this, and that when I'm done with this, it is going to pay off. I'm like, man, I love that. We need to have that kind of mindset. I mean, I'll tell you, my final year of college, or what I thought was going to be my final year, it's January. I go to my advisor, and I'm like, hey, man, this is it. It's 4 years in, and I've done pretty good. I'm on the honor roll. This is it. I'm so excited. Like, how do I get signed up to walk at graduation in May and everything? And the advisor pulls up my syllabus and everything, or schedule that looked at all my classes, and he's like, man, he said, yeah, you've done good. Oh, by the way, there's a few more classes you got to take. I was like, what? He said, yeah. I said, this is a spring semester. I said, I'll double up. I said, I've done 21 hours before. I said, whatever. I want to get done. I'm out of money. I'm out of time. I said, there's this really incredibly hot chick over at UCA that I want to give a ring to eventually. I was like, I want out of this place. He said, the news gets worse. He said, we only offered one of these classes every other spring, and this is not that spring. I'm going to tell you what, man, I walked out of that office, and I was mad. I mean, I was so ticked off. I was upset at just the fact of thinking, how in the world do I have to go through another year of college? Because I was ready to be done. And on top of that, I was out of money. And at this point in time, I had taken out no student loans. I had worked 40 and 50 hours a week doing plumbing, heating, and air for part of that, and then part of that I was working at a church. I mean, I was like, man, what in the world am I going to do? I'll never forget, I went to UCA where this incredible hot chick I was wanting to give a ring to was at, and I said, I don't know what to do. Like, and there was this thought that went through my mind, this really, it was a lie. It's like, hey, you're going to be a pastor. You don't really have to have a college degree. Guys, I'm going to tell you, if you believe that, you are so wrong. If you're in pastoral ministry right now, and I'm telling you, there was a lot of guys in our college that got that mindset. Hey, I'm going to be a pastor. There's a lot of churches that will hire guys without college degrees. There may be some. You probably don't want to work at them. I mean, I'm just shooting you straight. Finish that degree. And I remember she looked at me and she said, if you drop out of this now, you're going to regret this for the rest of your life. You're going to regret it as a pastor. You're going to regret it someday as a husband, and you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. And she was so right. I ended up marrying that girl, by the way. She was that smart. So we've been married 16 years. We got 2 kids, and I'm telling you what she said that day was gold, and I remember it. She probably didn't remember it. I remember where we were sitting. I remember where I had to make that decision. Was I going to quit, or was I going to go forward? And guys, those decisions have come up a lot of different times in my life. A lot of those times where I've had to just kind of stop and think, okay, where am I going? Because life has a lot of different battles. If you are in pastoral ministries and you're going that direction, let me tell you something. You've got some uphill battles coming to you. You're going to have some hard times. You're going to have some parents or deacons tell you just how bad you are at your job. You're going to have to learn how to handle that. You're going to have to decide whether you're going to give up or whether you're going to push forward with the calling that God's given you. You're going to have some young lady walk up someday that's been a leader in your group. She says, I'm pregnant. Happened to me about a month ago. Again. Because we're working with broken people. You're going to have a young man that you thought was a leader that gets busted with a DUI, or comes up and says, hey, my girlfriend's pregnant. That's happened more than once. How do you handle these situations? How do you push forward? How do you stay focused? Guys, I'm going to tell you, it's only through the grace of Jesus Christ you make it through these situations. But they're worth making it through. Because if you're not reaching people like that, you're not reaching the right people. I'm going to tell you, as a student pastor, when First Baptist Rogers called me in, they had this beautiful student ministry of all these incredible Christian students that I love them. I mean, they're incredible. I remember asking the team that was talking to me, I said, how are you going to handle when this whole student ministry looks a lot different? They said, what do you mean? I said, you got a lot of really good Christians in this student ministry. I want to teach them to go out and reach the ones that aren't. I want to see it change. I want to see us with people that we have police officers here waiting and watching for. It's happening. And I actually reminded someone in our church of this conversation here recently that was in that meeting. A parent, he was like, man, there's some guys coming. These look a little rough. And I was like, yeah. I said, let's think back 5 years ago. You remember that meeting? She said, yeah, you're right. And because of that, since August of this year, we've already seen 23 students that have given their life to Christ and been baptized just in our student ministry. Guys, let me tell you, those are the students you want to reach. Yes, they're messy. Yes, it's hard. Yes, you want to give up sometimes. I can't tell you how many times I have walked out in that stinking parking lot and found students out there vaping and doing things they shouldn't. And I cannot stand that mess. But it's worth it. I'm not going to give up because those are the ones that need to hear about Jesus. If you're not going to pastoral ministry, let me tell you something, man. The work world, the world outside of the church, there's a lot of struggles too. Some of you guys are going to get married. Some of you girls are going to get married, and you're going to have some struggles in your marriage relationship at some point. Do you give up or do you push forward? You're going to have to make that decision. You're going to have to decide whether that vow you made at the altar before God is worth working through or whether you're going to give up. That's going to happen. You're going to have to finish that course. You're going to have a moment in time where you might get laid off a job and you don't have a clue how you're going to put the next bologna sandwich on the table. And you got to figure that one out. And it's going to be hard. It's hard enough you got to eat bologna sandwiches. Your kids are going to not be the perfect angels that you think they are. And you're going to have to deal with a parent. And as a parent, you're going to have to figure out how to handle that situation. Man, my two daughters they're so opposites. My oldest daughter, she's got the sweetest heart. She is a deer-killing fool, though, man. She's a bow hunter, and I'm a big hunter, so we have had so much fun killing deer. My youngest daughter, she's crazy. She is absolutely crazy. Like, we went to Sirodar City here recently, and we were just hanging out. My oldest daughter, who, we're big wakeboarders and do a lot of water sports. She'll wakeboard, and she's going to be doing a flip by the end of next summer. There's no doubt in my mind. That's just who she is, but she is scared to death of roller coasters. My youngest daughter, who's 6 and right below that legal limit where she can get on the roller coaster, she's like, Daddy, we've got to find one of these things I can get on. So it's different, and I'm telling you, the way we parent them is different. There's been a lot of times where my wife and I are scratching our heads going, how in the world do we do this? But we don't give up. So when we hit our knees and say, God, we need help in this. We stink as parents. We need your help. And the last thing I want to talk to you about is that right there. He says he kept the faith. What does that mean to keep the faith? Guys, I just want to ask you this, and I just want you to think through your mind right now of how true this is or isn't for you. Are you striving daily as a college student to get closer to God? Man, I think back to college, I had these excuses like, I know my quiet time's not that great, but I'm in Bible classes, so it's okay. I'm still learning, and I remember that, or even as a student pastor, sometimes in my life, I was like, look, I know I haven't spent much time in God's Word, but I'm studying for my lesson for Wednesday night or Sunday or whatever. Guys, let me tell you something. You need to have a daily quiet time that has nothing to do with your studies in school, nothing to do with sermons you're prepping for if you're a pastoral student, nothing to do with anything except you and God. 30 minutes. Get up 30 minutes earlier if you have to. 30 minutes a day. Just start with that. And get ready, because it's not going to last 30 minutes for very long. It's going to be an hour before you know it. Because as you grow and as you get in God's Word, as you spend time with God, your longing for it becomes more and more and more. And it is so awesome. Keep the faith. Don't let college keep you from doing that. Are you sharing the faith? And this is so important. It amazes me as a student pastor how many student pastors I meet that don't go and share Jesus with people. Like, they're just not even, they'll say, well, I'm not very evangelical. I'm more of a disciple maker. I'm like, well, wait, hold on. You can't tell me that you're a disciple maker and you're not evangelizing, because those two go together. It starts with evangelism, and then it goes into discipleship. And if you're not looking at discipleship in that way to go and send people out to go evangelize more people, to build disciples out of them, you're missing what discipleship is. So don't tell me that. I can't tell you the number of people who I know right now who go to church every single Sunday. Maybe they work on staff, maybe they don't, but if you ask them, say, how many people have you shared Jesus with? They would just shrug and say, probably not any. Breaks my heart. We should be excited about it. As a Razorback fan, the next time they win a football game here in the next 10 years, I'm going to make sure everybody knows it. So why don't I do that with Jesus? If I'm really excited about what Jesus has done in me, why don't I do that about Jesus? And keep the faith even when it's hard. I mentioned we've been trying to sell a house for 8.5 years. The house is empty right now. And it's funny how God has taken care of us in these moments. My dad had a big back surgery just a few months ago, back in July, and still recovering. My mom got diagnosed with cancer in August. In fact, today she goes for her 5th chemo treatment. There's a lot of things in life that pull us away. They want to keep us from finishing the course. They want to keep us from fighting the good fight. They want to keep us from keeping the faith. But I'm telling you, it is worth it. Don't give up. Live out your faith daily. Let people see Christ in you and share Jesus with them. I'm not saying evangelize just by how you live. I'm saying evangelize by opening your mouth and talking about what Jesus has done in your life. We walked back out on that field that night. We played Marion. And I'm telling you, it was a weird walk out on that field as a coach, and you're always passing the other team. As you're going out there, I didn't know what was going to happen. But we didn't let them score another touchdown. And we put 37 on the board. We walked off with a win that night because that team refused to give up. And since I was the newest coach on staff, when we got done, they decided to give me the game video and send me to their office to go give it to them. That was a weird feeling, too, as you walk in realizing you just came back from a 34-7 deficit and won the game. But guys, I'm going to tell you, it came from a bunch of high school students who chose not to give up in a football game. Your life with Christ is way more important. Don't give up on what God's calling for your life is. Don't give up on college. Don't give up on your future of being a husband or being a wife. Don't give up as being a parent someday. Don't give up in your job, guys. Strive forward. You have Jesus living in you. And if you don't, change that today, because you might not have tomorrow to do that. I'm so thankful that Jesus came and looked at me and loved me so much that he went and climbed on that cross. Romans 5:8 is one of my favorite verses. It said he demonstrated his love for us, and while we were yet still sinners, Christ died for us. That's the kind of love Jesus has for me. So he came and lived a perfect life. He climbed on a cross by his choice, giving his life for me. He rose again 3 days later and said, look, he said, I just want you to repent and follow me. Have you trusted in Jesus today? Thank you so much for letting me be here. I love you guys, praying for y'all, and I look forward to seeing how God's going to use a lot of you in the future. Thanks.